Hello, welcome to this video. Thanks so much for tuning in to my channel and to this insider's glimpse at the Blackpilled events. Making this little prelude here at the beginning. Hopefully I'm going to cut it in correctly because the video I actually made a couple of days ago and I wasn't sure if I was actually going to share it or not, and then I ended up making a couple other episodes of Comprehending Consciousness in the interim. So disregard the fact that in this video I will call it episode 25A. It is 27, and I almost was just going to re-record and make a whole different insider's view video for the Blackpilled, but I feel like I rewatched that video and I do talk about so many things, and it is a great discussion, I feel. So I thought I'd just keep it, and I just record this little kind of introduction to let everybody know what's going on, and also because the ending's cut short from the original recording, and so I'm going to do like a conclusion, just like I'm doing like a little intro recording right here, and then I'll have the whole, it's about an hour that I talk on. So if you really do want to watch it, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me ramble for an hour. It has some great workings in there about shadow work and how I get through my own black pill events or dark night of the soul, you know. So I do feel like it has value in watching. So if you listen, thank you so much for staying through the whole thing. I hope you enjoy it, and like I said, I am going to have hopefully clipped in a short ending conclusion to just wrap up and sum up my my energy alchemy workings and how I pull myself through these kind of black pill events. So thanks so much for watching the video, and I'll see you around at the end. Hello and welcome to another video. This is going to be, I believe, 25A, a insider's look on the Blackpilled. I am noticing the sun is coming in at an awkward angle. Sorry. I hope it's not going to be distracting to the video. Anyways, this I thought was a great time to do this kind of personal insider's view where I could talk about actually in real time and a living proof of the black pill overwhelm and how we can work through it, sometimes where it comes from, what it can look like and manifest as in our lives, how we sort of, you know, eat them and bring them on, and, you know, what possible overdose feels like, right? Now, I hope that's not like triggering words to people with actual problems. I'm not talking, you know, obviously I'm using a metaphor, but it's an energetic thing, you know, it's an energetic poison, sort of, that we're talking about with the black pill, right? Now, I am sort of at this point in my own journey right now, and so I thought, like I said, this would be a good time to make this kind of video as a side video, an insider's look, I guess is what I'm going to refer to it as. And so quickly here, first at the start, I'll just say that I'm actually filming and recording this before I make 25 because it's, I just feel like if I talk about my own personal experience right now, it might help me to present a more condensed explanation with more direction and clarity when I really do go back and film 25 for Comprehending Consciousness, my series, in case I forgot to mention that, and I think I did. But yeah, I created the series, and I usually go over terms and phrases, right? So this one, 25, is the black pill, and I did the red pill previously, and I'm going to put that one in the description just in case also people are new to these phrases completely, and they're missing the Matrix reference, or they don't understand it, or maybe they saw the movie once, they don't even remember what that's all about, right? Watch the red pill one. That one talks a bit more introductory about the the references and stuff. But obviously here for this video, which is going to be more of afterthought, pre-afterthought, I'm not going to go into all that at this time. Which I'm sure if you watched 25, which is already up on my channel, then you get the gist of it. And if not, then definitely go and check that out. So one thing I do want to just say quickly at the start is that for me and myself in this video, my personal perspective and work is what I'm going to be putting out for an example here. And so, of course, it's laced and tainted with my own biases and my practice and, you know, my own flavoring. And I'm not trying to say that everybody's work has to look this way or anything like that. I'm just providing a working example that hopefully people could pull truths that resonate with themselves out of and identify parallel, similar, even contrasting experiences, right? To help you think it over in your own way, you know? No strings attached, no, you know, expectations or anything like that. So, I personally see and am speaking on the black pill as a slow kill. There are many varieties of it, and it hits people in different ways, depending on their level of conscious awareness, right? And how much work they're doing. Their level of reference. So for me, in my personal journey, I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. And by this stuff, I mean energetic alchemy, working light work and shadow work within myself to really assess my own truths and find myself and try to be as honest on my journey in my seeking, I guess, of truth as possible. And that's what I consider to be energetic alchemy. And I talk a lot about light and shadow work in many different videos and in blogs and all types of stuff. So if that kind of stuff resonates with you, then I might pop some things in the comments or whatever, some podcasts and blogs and talks that I've done about shadow and light work. It's crucial. It's foundational work for all of us, right? So what I'm trying to draw examples is that if we, instead of just eating having this thing with the black pills, right? If we instead see that as a working that has to have a remedy to it, or has to have a solution, or I'm trying to think of like anti-venom, another word for that. That's all I can think of right now, but whatever. Like, you know, some kind of thing to combat that heaviness, the darkness that comes along with the black pill, right? And that's where light work comes in, that's where love comes in, that where sovereign worth, and all of these things. And if we don't have that understanding, you don't have that working going on, then you can really, really harm yourself with the truth, or trying to seek the truth, because you end up getting lost in the matrix maze of all of these rabbit holes. And that is really what the black pill in itself really represents. Sort of its most base level, superficial version of the black pill is like the ultimate conspiracy theorists who just have gone so far down into these like rabbit holes that they just like totally lose all sense of what is this worth, what is the purpose, why. It's all so much. It can be so overwhelming. It can be really deteriorate your soul when you get down into that kind of stuff. And so the black pill is kind of like the ultimate version of that, right? But there's so many different actual ways we get there, and there's so many different avenues and things. And I really just want to go off on a ramble about how important it is to just like not get stuck down there. But I don't want to also get too sidetracked off onto talking. Actually, I mean, what the hell? It is what it is, right? But it's kind of redundant, and it will be kind of redundant if I go into that, because I will be talking about that in episode 25, right? And I'm gonna give really want to give a cautionary. Oh, it's early here. I'm sorry. A cautionary note about the slippery slopes of rabbit holes, and I'm gonna do that in 25. So I guess I don't want to be redundant here, and I won't go too far into that. But self-control, right? Seek your light. Seek the truth. But for what purpose? We seek the truth to seek harmonious solutions, a way through, a path back to oneness, right? Where all those involved are in a place of happiness. So getting lost down these, rabbit holes probably isn't the best way to get there. It's a good way to stagnate and hold everybody back, which is, what we're seeing in the world today. And so back to the black pill and what I'm talking about with my personal journey here, right? So for me and myself, I'm going to be giving a living, working example of what happens, or how I notice that I'm kind of blackpilling myself, I guess, right? Getting there. It's getting to be too much, because I do think it's a cyclic thing. It's something that we do, and it is necessary. It's duality. It's the turning. It's the changing. That is life. That is aliveness, being, right? So it never ends, and this is why I like to draw the parallel to light work and shadow work, and really see the seeking of truth that we see truthers doing, and that we see being the motivation and the desire behind why we want to know what the truth, right? It's the truth. Why wouldn't that in itself is the light. And whether you choose to, hold on to that in a structured, dogmatic, religious way, or whether you like it to be more of a loose metaphysical version or spiritual or whatever, it doesn't even matter. But to have it as something, and to have that connection of working there is crucial. To know that when you're seeking truth, you're seeking oneness. You're seeking God, source, the before, the original, organic, yourself, right? Yourself. It's a beautiful pursuit, and it is fueled with love. And so it's so important for us to remember that when we are down in those rabbit holes very deep down, right? That we went down there for a purpose. And the purpose is to open it up, shine some light on it, see what's going on, assess it, accept it, and provide working solutions for all. Harmonious solutions, right? To seek homeostasis. That is the purpose of the universe, the ether, all of us. And so we have to keep that in mind, and we have to keep our bodies, our energetic bodies, our emotional, our physical, all aspects charged for the work that needs to be done. And so many get lost in the darkness and the black pills and the things that you're finding, that you're depleting your energy, and then you can't really do any kind of work when you're down there. And you certainly can't shine bright light and then pull up out of the rabbit holes the things that want to come out and do work, you know. And with fear of being redundant of my original video, I won't get too much into that. But my point in giving these examples and showing this and comparing to shadow and light work is that if we start to realize, and this is what I do, and this is what I'm doing here by sharing, is seeing that I have blackpilled myself, or feeling like I'm getting there, right? And what I like to see that as resonates back to shadow and light work, and sort of having an energetic fuel tank, and that my tank is getting low, and you know, it's time to fuel up. And that can come in a variety of different ways. It's the recognition that that's taking place that is the hardest and most crucial part of working, in my opinion. And so that's kind of my motivation and desire in making this video and talking about this and sharing this insider's view, is to help people who perhaps are feeling black-pilled and don't see a way out, or people who maybe are just seeking truth, right? But seeking it in a linear way, maybe. Want to open up things and remind us that it is not a linear path to a goal, but a recycling, spiraling, where we're coming back to the same, but hopefully from a higher, slightly higher perspective, more choices and evidentiary points of data to choose from, and make more enlightened decisions at that time, to see it more clearly, see a bigger picture, make a better choice, right? We could be really unstoppable if we saw it this way. And if those people who resonate with black-pilled or red-pilled, or the truthers out there, the seekers, if, you know, we start to fuel the fight in the way that needs to be done, we break the matrix from the inside out. Just, however, the external world's a little bit lagging. And so, for me, personally, the shading or flavoring of my overwhelm this time around is different than it was last time around, right? And I think that's an important thing. That's why I like to look at us as alchemists, and shadow and light work always happening and changing, and layers upon layers being, you know, cut back and seen and assessed, because it's never ending. And so if you just accept that, instead of burning yourself out for exhaustion, you can learn perseverance, you know, temperance, sacred moderation, so that you can keep yourself going, right? It's not a race, it's a marathon kind of mindset. And so the ultimate black pill, and what I'm kind of talk about now, is the thing that I'm facing, and how I work myself through it. Because, like I said, it's a recycling. It's always the same but different. You know, I'm called at so many lines and quotes of books that have been just like circling. You know, like 1984. And like thinking of future just being a boot stomping a human face forever. Or this book that I just read that was called Trinity, and it said that the future is just the past happening over and over again. And it can be like difficult. How do you face that every day, right? How do you have that kind of black pill knowing that it never ends? Now, when we look at that on with a negative side of the spectrum, and we allow manyness to create infinite ideas of what that could look like on the negative side, right? I think that's what we see at play a lot in the world. And it's, for me, the black pill for me right now with this ultimate, what I feel is like the ultimate black pill, that feeling like of absolute I can't even think of the word. You just have no control over it, right? When we tell ourselves these things, when we see the recycling in a downward fashion, in a negative orientation, it's so defeating. It is really, really terrible to the soul. And it's like quicksand or tar or that terrible place in the never-ending story, that swamp of gloom or whatever, you know, the darkness, all of these, you know, all these places, like hell, is what, I'm not even from like a religious background, you know, and or anything like that. I didn't really grow up with dogmas like that pressed upon me. You know, I saw them obviously, but I had reference points, but they weren't pressed upon me. But anyways, that is what that would be to me. Like that's what I feel like hell would be. That's what I feel like it is. It's, you know, a place of absolute destitution to where you feel worthless and disconnected and meaningless. And it's I speak from you know, personal experience that I guess we can compare, you know, the ultimate black pills to like rock bottoms, to dark nights of the soul, right? Very similar type of mentality to where you have dug yourself into sort of rabbit holes where all of the evidentiary truth is kind of like collapsing in on you and just like suffocating you. So it's, you know, the digging out or that comes afterwards. What I make the video about, what I'm talking about, is how I try to not get down into having a total collapse in there, how I do seeking while I'm fully charged. And when I start to notice like I have energy getting low, that's when I pull back and do light work and get out of there. Now, at a variety of different times and levels and things, it looks in a different fashion. For me, in my life right now, in the last couple of days, is sort of what I'm talking about with this ultimate black pill that I feel like I have kind of gone through and have been, I like noticed that, you know, my tank's getting low. And so bringing in light and trying to refocus myself, right? And this time around, I was like, I've been being shown and shown and shown the solution or the answer sort of from many different angles and so many different metaphors lately, that this time it was like, it was so simple and so blatant in my face that like I was make myself laugh out loud by the thoughts that come through, because like in these points of communication or communion that we have within ourselves, that, you know, when we're having internal conversations, whether it's with source or higher self guides, you know, a different perspective that you can hold at the same time within yourself, or whatever, you like to look at those conversations as, right? It was one of those kind of situations, a conversation with myself, because I'm feeling everything getting low. So now I know I need to bring in light, right? But it's the feeling that I brought upon myself, I'll talk about quickly here. I wanted to share my experience, right, and give a life example. And I really hate to give life experiences when they're terrible, because I don't want to give bad feelings to people, and I hate to give resonance out there and speak negatively. I guess I don't like to share negativity. Just because I feel others' negativity, I feel my own negativity very heavily. I'm a sensitive person, and so I just tend to view everybody else as sensitive as I am, and it's painful. I don't like to cause pain to people. I don't like to cause pain to myself, right? But it's undeniable that it happens, and it's crucial that we know and we talk about it, and that we are unafraid to do so, right? So this time, this collection, I guess I'll call it, of evidence or of seeking, has sort of been a culmination of history. Working on this other series, which is the Negative Agenda Tricks and Traps, and I have been doing a lot of seeking and working and understanding around the negative agenda and the archons. And currently what I'm doing is plotting, you know, marking the trail through history, sort of pulling out reference points, and making a plot line, sort of, that I'm going to discuss in a future video to come before the end of the year, to sort of talk about the death of cultures and this sort of parade or march or whatever that the negative agenda has made across our history, across mankind, this planet, whatever you want to look at it as, the plane, this sphere, this hologram, I don't know. I'm not trying to say what it is when I'm talking about it, and I do that with a purpose because I really don't feel it matters what it is. The truth of the truth, it's a great mystery, and it's not part of our conscious awareness in the capacity to know the setup of that right now. A cell or an organ, say your heart, in heart cells, they don't need to know what my purpose is today in order to be beating and do their job inside my heart, right? They don't have that same scope or of the microscope, the same lens, the same focus. It's totally, at a different capacity. And so I think that kind of, whatever the terms are really not part of the equation right now, is kind of what I'm trying to say. And so I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent here. But my point being is that I'm doing a lot of collection of information and seeking truth in that way. And so my polarity, of course, is like gaining negative charge. And starting to feel the wear and tear and noticing my gas tank is getting low, right? Sorry, excuse me. And so, while I'm doing this work and I'm logging the evidence and stuff, and compiling things, and it's not brand new to me because I feel like I've kind of always been awake, and definitely on the spectrum of conspiracy theory, kind of out there, in that kind of realm. I've always, ever since I was a teenager, or even like 12, 11, that I could remember, that I've always been seeking kind of ulterior explanations. I always saw things differently. I always felt like an outsider, and descriptions and explanations that were given, and that seemed like everybody else just got it or just went along with it. I would question, and and look at, I always had a different perspective and see things differently. And that led me sort of into paranormal things, and that led me into sort of like the fringe conspiracies and all alternative histories and different explanations to things. And so then 9/11 happened, and that really made me realize the scope of the attack, because like I said, I've always been sort of awake. I've always had a knowing and an understanding that the government is not your friend, and that they don't like people. They're anti-human. And the establishment is, and the systems are, and I saw the same reflections in school from a very young age, right? So what I'm trying to say by giving all of this sort of backgrounding information is that even people like me, even people who, this stuff isn't new to, we still come up against overwhelm. We still are seeking. We still don't know. There is a certain point that you get to that you see the glass ceiling, and that you just realize, or you're pushed against it so much that you know that you can't get through it. And so the ultimate black pill that I am facing is the pill of it. It's the exhaustion It's that knowing the darkness, knowing what you're up against, having experience in it, having strong light to know that the level of work that is asking to be done, and having to say yes every time, having to do it again and again and then again. And if you don't do it again, you're giving up. It's I guess sort of like we all face this shit or get off kind of mentality. Excuse my language, but you know, shit or get off the pot. Like, there are so many intermingling tactics and little entanglements that happen when we have gathered negative orientation, right? So as I've been saying, and I'm going to use this as my personal example here, I've been doing a lot of seeking in history and aligning these things and collecting a negative polarity, because a lot of it is just so negative. It is unbelievable. The more you see, the more you become able to accept that that's all there is. And it can be a very slippery slope, because for me, I have a higher perspective look at all of this work from so many years of doing this, right? And so I see the very slippery slope that happens at this point, where so many people slip down and lose themselves and OD on black pills and, you know, bring themselves to rock bottoms, dark nights of the souls, absolute destitution, points of, you know, feeling suicidal, feeling like nothing is worth it or nothing will change, you know. It's a very real place to be at, and there's real dangers with it. And so it takes real self-love and identifying your sovereign worth within yourself and your quest to that truth, not their truth. That truth, the truth within yourself and your soul to oneness, and is where your loyalties have to lie. It's where your fuel comes from. It's where motivation comes from, and it's the choice point. So when we feel ourselves on this very slippery slope, it's so crucial that we remind ourselves of that and say, no, I choose my truth. I choose the truth, the one truth. And that is my space of unconditional love and sovereign worth for myself. I do have meaning. It does have purpose. It's blatant because we each have our own little bubble reality here that we experience. The proof's in the pudding, you know? It's undeniable, that fact. And so when we're getting down in these rabbit holes, we're collecting a lot of negativity, when you see a lot of this stuff, it becomes harder to have these conversations with yourself. You get to a point where you don't want to hear it, or you kind of shush it out. Or you're like, yeah, I remember, but let's get back to this, because this truth is really important and I'm almost there. You know? That's a trick, and that's a trap, and that's getting you to get more negative. And then you're feeding that little bit of light that you just sparked up, instead of casting it in an honest way to do work and find solutions and tell the shadows they need to be seen right now. You know, they're basically using your little dim light that you've just kind of ignited into their own service to contort it and distort it and hide more shadows in it, get you seeking down deeper. And that, in the end of the day, is feeding that negative system. It's not actually lighting you up. It's not pulling you out. You're not doing service to the shadow when you're doing that down there. You might trick yourself. The matrix most certainly is going to have overlay programming that's going to be in there telling you 100% that you're serving the truth down there. But when you stop and remember and listen to your heart and your sovereignty, you can see for yourself that that is not true. And it doesn't feel good, and it's depleting your energy, right? And so basically, that's kind of where I have been at. Instead of allowing myself to really deplete my energies, I do light work, and I bring myself out instead. And I talk about this a lot with shadow and light work in other videos, so I won't get too much into like the practice points. But I will say that it's, if you do the work, you'll see, it works so much better, and you find more truth, you set sacred boundaries easier, you don't go crazy, in the what ifs and in the conspiracy theories as much, when you do this kind of work, and you find better results, and you can use your intuition with more clarity. So when you do look at the chaos, you see the chaos for what it is, and then you see the truth. But, you can help find better solutions when you come at it from a place like this. If and when you try it, you'll see the benefits in your life, and you'll never go back to depleting your energy completely and then trying to do light work after the fact. Or just depleting your energy completely and hitting rock bottom, and having a mental crisis, or having real problems, because lots of people do. So many people get real, they tunnel themselves down so deep they never will find a way out. And let's avoid that. I'm avoiding that. I hope everyone out there will avoid that too. So this is what I'm saying. So this time here, this circling around, right, and this time that I'm making this negative agendas history plot for the archons specifically, right, I started to get bogged down. I started to feel like, what's the point? Because nothing ever changes, and you see historically the faces and the places and the spaces change, but it's all the same song and dance everywhere. And so specifically for me, when I had felt initially like, I already know that, I'm well aware of that. I've been known that. So I kind of thought I was, and I did, and I'm able to, and I will say, I feel like I've accomplished that, and I am accomplishing that, but I'm taking my time more, because I feel like it's a bigger job than I kind of realized. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But this time around, it's bringing in new layering, right? So I started thinking to myself, about the exhaustion, the never-endingness of it, and really struggling with that, how we just have to keep going every time kind of feeling. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I think I did, lately in my recharges, in my light collection, in my communion space with my guides and my higher self and all of that, source and everything, like, I have been getting beautiful insights and messages about how we keep going, and about the bigger picture of the whole thing. And I've had like multitude of these little epiphanies and great visualizations and things, and I've written blogs and other podcasts I did on them, specifically. So I won't get too much into like the details of the other aspects of ways I've seen the same thing, because I'm going to talk about this one particular one that I had now. But I'll link the podcast I did, and I talked about And I think that there's a blog as well that I wrote about this great working of light versus dark, good versus evil, and I had like this visualization, I guess, of a way to be told about it. But anyways, I'm not going to get, like, I'll link that below because I don't want to get off track about this specific time. The overwhelm in itself, it was coming from this idea of, I'm at 45 minutes and now I'm just getting into it. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a long video. So if you're listening to me, thank you so much for staying and listening. Try to say this like quickly, I guess, as I can. I am refocusing, kind of, or have followed this entire plot line to present time and looking into the future, right? And what this will mean in more varieties and possibilities into the future. How we will see this exhausting battle, what kind of faces and places and spaces it's going to inhabit pretty soon. Now, I have children, and so an entire layering of my thought and my worry, I guess, or my the probabilities and possibilities that I speculate upon and that I happen to resonate, react with, respond to, always have this kind of like, what kind of futures for my sons, you know, this for my sons, for the most healthy, best life they can have, you know, like how are they going to be able to live to the fullest of their potential, you know, and enjoy their time here, make the best of it, be able to actually get a good start on that. And so, as you know, I'm thinking about the Death March and the archonic agenda, and we think about the close future. It's quite frightening. And whatever side of the puzzle that you are standing from, looking into the picture at, it's frightening. And so, okay, the culmination of my ultimate black pill, and sorry to bog everybody down with this, I really am. However, I will say that doing this plot lining and looking at things and realizing how much lies are history and how much we really don't know anything, and the possibilities of all of these different alternative timelines and alternative histories and what could be the real truth, I thought of it as information to gather that could help with the background, right, for the negative agenda that I'm writing. But also, I happen to be in the mix of, or in the process of, like 2 out of 3 of these novels that I have been writing since 2017, I think. I started in, could be late 2016, I forget. But anyways, it's been quite a while that I was blessed with this book. It came out of nowhere back then, and I, at that time, was starting a real awakening process. I had revamped my life, and I had, like, quote-unquote cured my chronic disease and really made headway with the horrific symptoms and migraines and things that I was suffering from, that I had suffered from for most of my life, early 20s, teens, whatever. by this time, by the time I, it was 2016, I had really switched the angle of my life and started a whole awakening process, both on a physical level and a spiritual level. And I was gifted this idea for this book, and I had this whole period of time where I hand wrote out this book. I couldn't even sleep at night. The very beginnings of this book, and it's been going ever since, basically. I've had some time, I take some time off, and sometimes I put it aside, and it's just, I don't want to get into the whole of the plot line and all this stuff. And I won't, this isn't going to be like a read my book kind of thing. I don't even care. I don't even know if I'm going to finish it. And that's what the black pill is, right? Okay, so, for me and my personal thing here, it's like this, all of the culmination that's happened to me for this time around, for this like black pill sort of energy depletion recognition that I'm at here, I unknowingly triggered this whole other side, because I was doing what I thought was, it's considered shadow work, but it's mostly like research, it's negatively collecting polarity, for the reasons of it, and it is very shadowy, but it's, not what I consider to be like personal shadow work with myself, really. But anyways, it sparked, or it led to this black pill event that I'm having with my book. And so I was already, sort of in this kind of place of like history, nothing changes, like the archons are kind of like on and on and on, and it is ever never ending. And but also, like I said, I have been getting bits and pieces and wonderful resonances, and watching my energy levels while doing that kind of research work, shadow work, to always see the silver lining, to remind myself and to gather my energy in a multitude of ways, but specifically, like I said, I have been seeing the bigger picture of the whole thing, which is like the dare, the great, I don't want to call it a conflict, because I feel like that has, I don't know, it has a negative overtone to it, but a dare, you know what I mean? Like a game, I guess, is the best thing that I could choose to see it as, between dark and good, and Satan and God, or Jesus, or whatever you want to see that dichotomy as, or negative versus positive, or whatever. It's the necessary game in which you only lose by lying to yourself, basically. And at the end of the day, the winner is only, or can only be announced when one surrenders, I guess. And so, as long as you have a tiny bit of love or light, or whatever you want to call it, as long as you have a tiny bit of that resonating with you, you are winning, basically. If you choose positive polarity, right? If you choose that type of seeking back to source, like, then yeah, that's all it takes. And so I've had that kind of bit of reminders throughout, right? Just even if you just hold on to a grain of positivity, or just a bit of light, like you're winning, kind of thing, poking its head up to me, seeing over and over again. And when I started to see that, and I'm looking at history in that kind of angle, it's true and it's undeniable. There's always a rising of freedom. There's always a rising of goodness. There's always a rising of truth. And love and family and righteousness, whatever you want to call it, it always pops back up. It's never stifled completely, and that gave me hope again. And so, excuse me. And so, flash into kind of present moment, or a couple of, in this last week or so, right? I have been doing that kind of work for maybe a month now, or a little over 2 months maybe, of like research and putting plot lines together, working on the templates of the archons, and looking at creating footprints through history as well. And so now we can bring it to like kind of where I'm at right now. So with the ultimate black pill is how, what I had just said before about, I didn't realize really that negative polarity collection that's happening with the charge in this certain angle category that I thought I was doing work in, it's actually fueling and charging up the shadow inside of myself at a different angle that I didn't realize. And that has to do with present moment, looking into the future, myself and my own worries and my own worth, yet again, always comes back down to the same thing, right? Always back to the same, what's the point then? If it's going to happen again, what's the point, right? Being exhausted by that. Having to be up against that choice of dragging yourself up, picking yourself back up again. There's nothing harder than that. There's nothing more beautiful and more sacred than that as well, right? That moment is truth. It is our selves connecting into that eternal cord back to source, your eternal flame, whatever you like to see that as, your soul, whatever. That is where we pull from when we stand back up again. So, as I said, sorry to bring it down, but the black pill that I was facing, right, has to do with now, and has to do with my book and the future, and some very real possibilities, like what happens when people combine with artificial intelligence. What happens when we put the internet in a chip inside of our head. Now, granted, when I started this book in 2017, I had seen many things. I was already awake to this idea. I'm not saying I came up with this idea, or that this idea was brand new to me when the book came through. It popped this idea of people being connected to the internet, or being, robots one day, or artificial intelligence taking over cyborgs, all that kind of stuff. Of course, like, I read science fiction. I've been, all around the world and back. Got the t-shirt and all that jazz. So, that isn't really like what broke my spirit, so to speak, right? Blackpilled me, I guess. But I'm already, right, in sort of like a more negative orientation, because I am like focusing a lot of my time and attention into these sort of parameters over on the negative structuring, overlays and things. And so when I'm working on my book, it's tugging on my heartstrings a bit more, right? I'm emotionally sort of more depleted, more on like a mediocre kind of deluded heart space center. Because when you get that way, and you feel like you're up against the world and it's you against the world or whatever, like it can be really defeatist. It doesn't feel good. And so, right, we don't want to sit in the present moment. We don't want to sit in our heart center because it doesn't feel good. But anyways, so I have this book that obviously I'm still working on, and it's post all of this. And so, and I'll say as a writer and stuff, and I'm not going to make this into my book and all my book and stuff, but as somebody who loves to read and as a writer and I love fiction and nonfiction as well, whatever, creating a backstory is wonderful. World planning, character building, I love that kind of stuff, right? And I spend a decent amount of my time doing stuff like that as well. And so, although my book that I'm writing is set in the future time where already the whole entire masses and all of the corporations in the world have already reached past singularity and already have all of that, not, you know, they don't even need chips anymore. Well, they do, but whatever. It's kind of surpassed that angle. I spend time writing the backstory, right? And I have like older characters, you know, who have sort of lived through, and I have characters who work in research labs and who've made it through, you know, the developing of those kind of technologies. And so I spend time in my own imagination space sort of asking myself questions, and also do a lot of, like I said, reading and research and things on actual technologies and things. And so since 2017, when I started to really get into writing this book, I wanted to, you know, make the verbiage and make the topics as real as possible, and to really kind of examine that to myself. Well, how would we get to that place, and how would they convince people to do that, and to get chips and all of this kind of stuff. So even though that is a backstory part of my book, you know, I have a bit of a plot line that I had harnessed and talked about and developed inside of my story, inside of my brain, about the things that would look like, and how, pulling from how they pushed and herded society in different manners throughout history, you know, drawing from those, because they use the same templates everywhere they go, right? And so this is another thing now that starts to tie into real time, and that is happening now, you know, sorry, my son is talking to me. Hey, try to do these things in one shot, right? So, don't want to lose my space and my train of thought. If they're going to do it, and if they have, maybe they have already, you know, because there's a whole other lens to this, and when you get into actually talking about the reality of the real world, right, we have to say, well, what are they doing behind closed doors that we haven't seen yet? And look at what they're promoting out of the veil now, who's stepping on stage, ready to put chips in people's brains on the stage. So what has already happened behind the stage, behind the curtains, right? And it just reminds me of, you know, and I'm writing the book, and it's just like all of these scientists behind closed doors with military contracts and all of these, you know, billions of dollars at their disposal. What kind of things actually take place, and how perhaps the field of science and academia don't exactly resonate with or believe in the notion of spirit or in God, and an extension and ultimate purpose or oneness. They don't believe in that. And so if we keep that in mind, the systems, the structures, the experiments, the intention gets really, really negative really quickly when we accept the notion that they are negatively aligned. They have chosen the original distortion as to deny connection to source and truth, and everything they build is off of that, off of a lie, and then to prove that lie is the ultimate intention, and disprove the natural, organic source. Or that it's just inconsequential, not real, not provable, not seeable, and therefore it doesn't come into the equation in any of their formulas. And for a person who believes in a spirit and believes in the divine experience of life, that becomes a direct threat to your direct world. And this is why it becomes unbelievably important that we set sacred boundaries and that we stay charged, that we stay as clear as we can, and that we think as clearly as we can. And we remember the big picture, right? And the big picture is that just one more time kind of mentality. It's a hard thing to be up against, but when you accept it for what it is, the working can become easier. And I'm saying this from experience. I'm also, I'm talking to myself just like I'm talking to anybody who's listening, because every day we need this great reminder. And that's, a blessing and a curse at the same time. And what better way than, the strange duality, the paradox world, to wake up every day with this option, blessing, curse, blessing, curse. What do I choose? I choose, blessings and positivity and love and connection and oneness. And when you can pull back any situation, any idea, any truth, any, thing that's real wrapped up and seems to be so confusing and can be so entangled in all these different aspects and perceptions and choices and all these things, when you could just pull it back and ask yourself which one feels good and which one doesn't, and choose the one that feels good for yourself, then, then you're seeking positive polarity. Then you're doing some work. Now, present moment, well, not present moment, but, to this present tense kind of black pill thing that I'm facing, right? Which so many of us are facing and we're going to face. So I just thought it was a good time to talk about it and use this as a personal example, right? With what this choice that we're going to have, whether we choose to embed our bodies with artificial intelligence or not, whether we can choose organic acceptance for what is and what we've been given, or whether we want more or different, or basically to distort the truth. We have the right to do that, and every being has the right to do that. And so that's why doing your inner work and knowing yourself and what you want for yourself, knowing what you're seeking, is step one. It's so important, and it's always what you're going to fall back to, because it's really that light, the inner light, that guides you out. Knowing how we tap into that, right, is what is what the game's all about, I guess. So I have had all of those kinds of things on my mind, right? From weighing on me from all of the past history repeating itself, and all of these examples of it, and then my own life, and just how many examples in my own life that I have been faced with, to just keep moving through. And I was starting to look at it in a shading of negativity and feeling kind of defeated. And so I started to look at like all the obstacles I've been against, and seeing how many times I've had to pull myself up, and allowing myself to be tired by that instead of invigorated. Instead of seeing it from a positive angle and seeing strength in that, I was seeing more depletion, and how could I ever keep going again? And it was weighing down on me. And, then we start to see things about, real world and Neuralink and, the Chinese model and social credit and digital IDs and all of these technologies that's happening, right? It has that unavoidable feeling to it, and it's exhausting, and it's starting to really feel really exhausting to me, and I was getting very wrapped up in it, and seeing out in the future like only the negative possibilities, and really allowing my attention and imagination to explore those possibilities, and almost wanting to create concreteness out there in that. And that is so important to realize, when we have a lot of negativity around us, that our shadows are doing more of that subconscious work, and they're really out there plotting for the negative agenda. The conscious collective is programmable as well, and they use that predictive programming to sort of align the possibilities stronger into the future, so that they could harness control in a more structured way. So planning outcomes and things, we all know about that problem solution cycle and all of that. It's nothing new, right? And so being in the present moment of kind of what we feel like we're up against, it turned into, for me, in this black pill moment, right? My book and life is intermingling and becoming reality. And so being conscious of where I am plotting and planning is becoming even more relevant. And all these choices that I thought that, oh, well, what am I going to make when I'm up against them? Well, we're up against them, so what are you going to do? And when we make these types of choices, when we want to protect sacred boundaries and say no, and hold ourselves accountable, what happens then? What choices are we up against, right? And the more real it becomes, the more real it becomes. It becomes more threatening almost. And so all of that piling up becomes, to me, now I'm going to put my last layer onto the black pill, right? So knowing things that we're up against, feeling like there's no way to get past this, that eventually humanity is going to sign away its organicness and its connection to God and Source, and serve artificial intelligence, or whatever. That possibility happening in my lifetime, and my children having to grow up in a world where they have to face these choices, has become really real to me. And it's been an added negative layer, an added thing that I have to work through, an added pressure catalyst, right? It's not just about planning a book anymore. It's not about having a good plot line or deep characters or making them seem like real. You know, there is an evil seeking conglomeration that is going to really push the boundaries and see how long it takes for us to say no, and who will say no, and when and why and how long. For how long. And when you put that asking for how long on a spectrum of artificial intelligence within algorithms and computers, it's almost as close to infinite or eternal as an inversion can get, right? And so, yeah, I've been thinking, how do I introduce my children to this idea without scaring them? How do I even talk to people without sounding absolutely crazy? It's all well and good to write it in a book. It makes for great science fiction. But to actually try to have a conversation like that legitimately is difficult. And it makes you feel alone. And back again to the black pill, and to the feeling of absolute aloneness, separation. Nothing's worth it. You can't succeed, up against a wall, alone. Others don't understand, Those truth seekers who get really wrapped up in black pill themselves and end up really down in the deep depths. And I could see myself going there, and that's why I just know the importance of not allowing myself to get there, of not allowing myself to lose it all, because what's at stake? My sovereignty, my light. And so it's crucial to understand that working, but this added layer, and what's really been the final kind of straw on the camel's back, I guess I could say, to my energy world, is this concept of how close it is into reality, and how to actually be able to speak to others and to teach my children in a way that is conscious of that, and that will hopefully help to guide them in making their own choices when it comes up to that point. Because I think it's clear that most certainly in their lifetime they will come up to this choice point of whether to be organic and to live life as you were born, as God created you, as life created you, as your mother built you and birthed you, or do you discard that gift? Do you say no to God? Say it's not good enough, or it's too much, or needs changing or something. It's a deep concept as a mother or as a father, as any, even if you have just children in your lives, brothers and sisters who are young, or you have grandchildren, or you have nephews, anything, or even if you're just a teacher, even if you just love children, or life, or organic life, or God, or whatever your affinity for humanity is, some of us think there is a sacred boundary there with life. Some of us think there is a purpose, and some of us don't. And it's such a heavy feeling to have that infringement always kind of hanging over you, like waiting for you to just not get up one more time. Or, and so I can't really provide answers to when is the right time to talk about these things, or what is to be had in the future. I just am sharing this because this is the kind of black pill event that I'm facing, or was facing, sort of. I still am, but like I said, I had a beautiful experience in the shower, and made myself, you know, laugh about it all at another deeper level again. And so I really can't say that I feel that depleted as I did a couple of days ago when this was all really building up. But it was such a layering of these different, the past melting into the present and fading into the future, and then the whole thing with my book being so close to all of it, and also feeling like a tie and a beacon into the future, in my own imagination space, in my energetic space, and to start really being entangling and bogging me down in that kind of way. And then reflecting into my own personal life and adding that layer of being a mother and parents, and thinking about like kind of future my sons are going to have and these real choice points that they're going to be facing that aren't going to be so science fiction anymore. It's could be really really hard to go through, and so obviously I was seeking insight and looking for clarity and asking, you know, how do we keep going, or how do I approach this kind of thing, right? How do I approach this topic? How do I talk about it? And so I was in the shower, and along those lines, you know, of all of the building up and how you can feel powerless against the momentum of this thing we feel like we're rushing towards. And for me, and specifically the tone and flavoring of feeling like I'm rushing towards confinement, absolute imprisonment, a wiping away of uniqueness, a desecration of organic life and purpose, in such a finality, in such like a closing of the book kind of way. And what do we do in that case? You know, what now? Because every time I've faced a dark night of the soul or rock bottom, whatever, it's been real life catalyst problems, disruptions, you know. Well, what now? What do we do now? How do we move through? Because you're still there, right? And so I was reminded and drawn to this book that I am reading actually with my son right now, The Chronicles of Narnia, and particularly The Silver Chair, which is the book we're reading right now. And there is this point in the book, and it's really had a great impression on me. If you haven't read those books, I mean, or if you read them when you were a child and you didn't read them again, go back and read them as an adult, because they are just beautiful. Even if you're not, like, you know, Christian, some people think that it's like overly Christian themes, but no, it's such a beautiful stories, all of them. If you could read all of them, you know, all the books in a row, they're quick and they're fun, you know. There's a lot of really great working in there. But anyways, all right, I'm just going to end this because And hello, welcome to the end, to the conclusion of my video. I hope that it is enlightening and also not distracting that I have this conclusion here, totally separate, days after. But I wanted to close the video out and also hopefully just share this bit of the book that I was talking about for the working to really underline what I am trying to impress upon people about understanding our fuel tank and how we can ignite our soul and our eternal flame when we're feeling really destitute or really low, right? So if you are, or when I am, facing these moments or these black pill events, dark nights of the soul, where I feel completely overwhelmed and like nothing has purpose or sense, or why am I struggling to get back up again? Why am I, to keep doing this? Because as I talked about in the video, right, it can be really exhausting, this trying to pick yourself back up every time. And that's what recently, last week, I was really being bogged down with. And each time that I face these events, I get these great downloads, these great insights, visions, or understandings from my higher self, spirit, source, whatever, imagination space, the collective, all of those places. They send beautiful, comforting working down to me every time that I am feeling really depleted. And it's always the same message, kind of from a different angle. And I've been working so hard to define that message and speak it in a way that is plain as day, kind of. But it's a hard thing to do. And I guess, that's the depth of the working. And this is also why I see it from so many different angles usually. Now, this very last time, I was feeling, I was having this kind of like overwhelm in the shower and seeking, clearing away and cleansing. I do a lot of sort of meditating prayer in the shower to work with Spirit and Mother Earth and elementals to cleanse my body vessel and stuff. And so I was feeling, this great overwhelm about facing that ultimate worst case scenario, ultimate enslavement of the soul, right? And this, I feel, for me personally, is a lot of times what my battle comes back to, what the kind of ground level of all of the workings always come back down to, is kind of like this battle of faith within myself. When you get very negatively oriented or down or low, it can become really easy to hear that negative voice and believe it, to just say, okay, I'm never going to get up again, to think that maybe pain and hurt and disconnect and darkness is the end, is all there is. Or perhaps if you take it to a larger scale scenario with like an ultimate entity of evil like Satan or AI or aliens, whatever the flavoring is for you or for me at the different times, because each one has a different working, right? But anyways, they all come down to the same thing, right? This ultimate dark entity of absolute negativity winning over all and being the ruler of all. And what that would look like and how terrible that would really be. And sometimes when we're blackpilling ourselves, we can start to believe that, and then it's like you could kind of give up. It can be really difficult to turn it around, to see a silver lining or pick yourself up, right? And so that picking yourself back up, finding the silver lining, tapping into faith, is really what has become a strong working for me. It has really become, that rope that I can hold on to and remember and pull myself up with, right? And for all of us, and for each time that we face this kind of defeat, it might be different. And it might be a different way out, or a different little resonance that sparks you to pull you out, or a new solution or something, right? But for myself and for this scenario of what I'm saying in my event in the shower and my last working with the Blackpill event here, it was more of like this end-all be-all. Well, what if Satan is the winner here? What if the dark side is actually the winner, right? What if the archons are it? What if they did ascend and they have reached the top and they have overcasted the entire working of the infinite creator? Is that real? Is that possible? And when you're in this overwhelm of a negative orientation, you've been blackpilling yourself with all of these things, it can be quite easy to think that way, to see that way, and to not be able to grasp the silver linings. And so for this particular time when I was in the shower and I was having this kind of overwhelm and I was crying and I was thinking about like that absolute, what happens if we do become enslaved automatons or whatever, like hooked into this artificial world. And I pose this question to myself, and I pose this question to myself a lot, you know, if I was faced with Satan or an archon or my shadow self, right? My darkest, deepest envisionment of all that is evil and could be put into, you know, a mind, body, spirit complex, right? If we could assign an entity to all of my negativity, right? And it's trying to tell you that this is all there is, you know? I was reminded, like I said, of this book, of the book Narnia, and I've read it so many times. I'm reading it with my younger son right now, because he's 9 years, almost 9 years old now, and so he's at that really fun, fantastical age, and I wanted to break him in with this. Like I said in the video, you know, it's great for adults, and it has such amazing working for a mature mind that it's not just a child's book. But anyways, so in the silver chair in the book, right, the characters are facing almost like a real black pill moment, but in a make-believe scenario, because they are quickly, I'll just say to sum it up, right, there's four main characters who are sort of Narnians. This prince, the lost prince, who has been enchanted and under the spell of this evil witch in an underground world, like way deep down under the ground, right? With like earthmen, and it's, you know, it's fantastical. And so the prince has been down there for 10 years and been enchanted, and the witch is using him for her own plot, right? But she has him under this magical enchantment, so he doesn't remember who he is or remember Narnia at all. And so Aslan is sending a boy and a girl and this other Narnian to go find the prince or whatever. Near the end of the book, when they find the prince, and they're in the underworld with the witch, and they release the prince from his enchantment by breaking the silver chair, or he breaks the silver chair, whatever. I won't get into all that. Anyways, the point is, he's broken from the enchantment, but they're trapped underground still, and the witch comes back, and she basically takes it on herself to try to reenact the enchantment, and also to enchant the other three who are there. And so she uses like magic in the fire and this little instrument to, you know, put this like sweet smelling, kind of slowing, confusing smell into the air with the fire, and then get this little bit of music melody going. And that right there kind of sets them in this open state, to where they're kind of sluggish and stuff, and like, and the prince who's released from the enchantment is, you know, trying to say to the witch, well, I need to go back to the overworld. I'm Prince Rilian, the son. I need to find my father and go inherit my country, Narnia, you know. And she starts very slyly saying, oh, what's Narnia? I've never heard of that. And they said, well, it's in the overworld. It's a country. I've been there. I'm from there. The other characters like, oh, we're from there. We've been there. It's up in above the ground where the sun and the sky are. And she starts saying, what's the sun? What's the sky? What's the overworld? I've never heard of that before. And she starts to make them second guess themselves. And meanwhile, the enchantment's taking place, right? And like their minds are getting foggy and clouded, and they can't remember as well, right? And so what they're basically, they start pointing out to try to tell her and describe to her what the sun is. And they say, you know, you see this lamp, because they have these sort of lamps, different kinds of lamps, magical things like underground to make a light. And they're like, oh, well, you see that lamp. The sun is like the lamp, except it's larger and bigger, and it hangs in the sky. And she's like, oh, very nice, but keeps questioning about it, like calm and centered. And, oh, well, I don't think, what could it hang in? There's nothing, if there was nothing there, how would it hang there? That doesn't make any sense. She's like, oh, what a pretty game you're playing. What a beautiful imagination game. And then they, you know, they give all these different descriptions, and everything that they're talking about, they give an example from her world, from the underworld, which she's saying her world's the only world. And her whole thing is like, oh, well, everything that you're claiming is a bigger, better version of everything we already have down here. You know, you're not actually talking about a real place. It's make-believe. What a pretty game you're playing, but look, my world is the real world, and all you're doing is making fanciful things about it. And they're like, oh, well, there's Aslan. And she says, well, what's Aslan? Never heard of that beautiful name. And they're like, oh, he's the great lion. He's the emperor from over the sea. The son of the emperor over the sea or whatever. And she's like, a lion? What's that? Never heard of it. And then they say, well, do you know what a cat is? And she's like, yes, I love cats. And they, oh, well, it's a bigger cat with a mane. And so the same thing again. Oh, well, you're just making like a bigger thing out of the cat from my world. And then she starts saying, well, you know, she's got them under the spell, and so she'll get them to repeat, well, there is no sun. And then they say, there is no sun. And, you know, and they say, like, well, there is no Aslan. There is no Aslan, you know. And everything, my world's the only world that's ever been. And they're like, yeah, I guess, yeah, your world is the only world that's ever been. We can't. And they start to forget and not remember that Narnia is a real place. And they get them to second question themselves. And so this is, the dichotomy is of good and evil here, and of the evil ones trying to present a false reality. And that is a false reality. It's a tricky way, because, right, her reality, we can see with our eyes, they are stuck underground, and it is real, it's solid. And so it has a footing. She has a footing, the evil has a footing to try to make you believe that that is all there is. But they keep remembering these little things, the sun, the stars, Aslan, like Narnia, the air, you know. But each time she ties it back in and says, oh no, that's just a version of this. That's just a version of this, right? And when I am having these conversations with my dark side, or with ugly truths or falsities even, that I am confronted with in my real world, right? It can have this sort of effect on us. This almost like enchanting, magnetic kind of, you want to, you know, you forget, or you feel muddled or whatever in your mind and in your imagination space, that kind of makes you believe that, yeah, that's all there is. And so the main point in my main working here is the ending and the resolution and the beautiful part that happens to break free, right? And this is what came to me, and when I was in the shower, and I was kind of having that, almost that feeling that the characters are going through in that enchantment part, where you start to talk about something that's beautiful and see all the hope and the beauty in it, but then immediately you have this other person or other voice or other perspective shooting it down, casting it down, bringing it back down into the 3D realm and saying, no, it's just this. It's just this. It looks that way. It's this way. And how defeating that can feel, and how it's a real struggle that people who are awakening and ascending to their soul's path, to 5D, to higher knowledge and truth, you know, we really face this all the time in real time, in real world, with real experiences and real comparisons here to this kind of working. The way we see things, the beauty, the love, the greatness we see, the potentiality, and then to have this sort of 3D, solid, negatively oriented being saying, no, it's not this way, it's this. It's only that. It's not as good as you're making it out to be. It's negative. It's not as, love and joy isn't all that is. There's disconnect and harm and hurt there too, always the cutting down. And so many of us who are waking up, we face this all the time. It's like, how many times do we pick ourselves back up, right? And that's what I was talking about a lot in that video, that the whole video is that feeling, is that ultimate place that I face a lot now, year after year, day after day, month after month, right? And how do we keep moving through, and where do we pull that from? And so I was feeling really, defeated and feeling very negative. And then I was reminded of this scene in the book, and I was reminded of this beautiful understanding of imagination and of heart and love and choice. And at the end of the day, it's really choice that is the big thing. And so as the enchantment's really starting to take place and really starting to take hold, and they're all really forgetting about Narnia, and they're ready to just submit to the witch and admit that her world's the only world. Her world in this cave in Narnia, there is no anything else ever. Right before they're about to submit to this, and it's funny too, because in the book they talk about how heavy and how relieved they feel to agree with the witch, and how hard it is to even move your mouth and to speak words against what she's saying, to disagree with her. It takes real effort to be built up inside this weird dream state to where you could force yourself to say, that's not true. No. And that really is a real working in real life, right? We really face these kind of things. But anyways, I'm going to read right from the book here, closing. And now this video is going to turn into like an hour and a half or long video, but whatever. I feel like this is so important to hear and for people to understand. And so, right when they're ready to give in, and the character Puddleglum, this Narnian, like fictional kind of Marshwiggle character, not a human, but it's a different type of fantastical character anyways. He has the heart and the mind in himself to, right when she's trying to get them to go to sleep to like close the deal on the enchantment, he somehow wakes up enough to stomp his own foot into the fire, and by putting his own foot in the fire, he burns himself. The pain shocks him awake out of the enchantment completely. It also stamps out the fire with the smell and the enchantment, kind of, so that wakes the others as well. And right when he does that, the witch like screams out at him, "How dare you do that?" And she breaks her beautiful, calm voice with her instrument and stuff too, and it shakes everything awake, and it brings it to a reality a bit. And Puddleglum has, he says at this time, and this is really, this is the reminder that I got in the shower. And he says, one word. "All you've been saying is quite right, I shouldn't wonder. I'm a chap who always liked to know the worst and then put a good face on it. So I won't deny any of what you've said. But there's one more thing to be said even so. Suppose we have only dreamed or made up all those things. Trees and grass and sun and moon and stars and Aslan himself. Suppose we have made it all up. Then all I can say is that in that case, the made-up things seem a good deal more important than your real ones. Suppose this black pit of a kingdom of yours is the only world." Well, it strikes me as a pretty poor world. And the funny thing is, when you come to think about it, if we're just babies making up a game, you're right, but the four of us babies making up a game in a play world can lick your real world hollow. That's why I'm going to stand by the play world I'm on Aslan's side, even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it. I'm going to live like a Narnian for as long as I can, even if there isn't any Narnia. So thanking you kindly for our supper, if these two gentlemen and ladies are ready, we are leaving your court at once and setting out in the dark to spend our lives looking for the overland. And so that piece of love and space to where we could have, and I can have the courage to look at the dark, destitute world that is being made out to be the real world, to be as is, right? And to say, well, I remember and I think and I've created, even if it is in my imagination, euphoria, bliss, full connection, undying love, the happiest feelings within myself that I have ever felt, belonging and support and excitement, curiosity, all of these beautiful feelings. If I made them up, if I have the capacity to make them up, then I choose to live in my make-believe world over this fake nonsense and over the real world, right? And to put the sprinkles on the cake there, it's kind of like an FU into the face of that ultimate entity, that evil shadow figure or Satan or archons or whatever the negative agenda is. It's that ultimate FU in their face when we can choose to say, well, I'm imagining things that are way cooler, way better, way more exciting, way sparklier, way more important to me and myself than your whole crap show out there. And so I must be better than you then. I must have something you don't then, if I can do that, right? And the final foundation layering is, right, if there is an ultimate negative agenda, if there is a Satan or an ultimate archon, a well of souls, supercomputer AI, or whatever the figure is that has this sort of centralized control to it, if that was to be the real creator, the ultimate creator, well, you created me. You created my imagination. And so I am, even if I am that only reflection out there that knows that's a glitch, that has this malfunction of love and connection and bliss, euphoria, wanting to serve and share and enjoy, if I am the only one, or if I'm some kind of malfunction for that, well, it's beautiful and I love it, and I will choose that every single time. I will remember that. And as much as I can, I will work always back towards it. I will always remember it, and I will always come back to it. I will always imagine better. And if at the end of the day that was to be true, and we are, and I am, or the few of us who can do this are some kind of mess up, some kind of glitch, or just the one pieces that can, well, we're even more important then, because we are that chance to shine back at that evilness, that negativity, to say there is something different. As much as you want to try to hide, as much as you want to pretend in your dark corner over there that I'm not here, that imagination doesn't exist, that love doesn't happen, there is no joy, humor, laughter, enjoyment, as much as you want to tell yourself that's not true, you created me here, so it is true. I feel it, I know it's true. It's truth in my heart, and nothing will ever make me forget that, or turn against it, or to say it's not real, or I never had it before. Even if I couldn't get it back, even if I couldn't hold it in my hands and know it for sure, even when I'm in my lowest low of alchemy and I'm in a real shadow state, black pill moments, I can think of my children and be lit up. I can think of my husband and be lit up. I can remember memories of childhood, magical imagination times, and be lit up. I can remember helping and serving others and sharing my truth to ease others' suffering and be lit up. And that's truth in it. That's working. And so at the end of the day and at the end of the black pills, you know, we have to remember that we're still going to be here, and that remembrance, that source of love is always there for us. And as soon as you choose it, as soon as you remember it, it will light you up. It will cast out into that darkness and be there still. And it can help pull us out. And I feel like if we can each do that, especially in the face of this ultimate negativity, that we could really, you know, break the matrix from the inside out. We can really get ourselves to be working for true ascension and for harmonious solutions for everybody here on earth, everybody who's part of this journey of reality, whatever it is. So yeah, I wanted to really just share that here at the end of the video. I'm sure now it's been like an hour and a half I think this video is going to be. So if you did sit with me through the whole thing, thank you so much for listening to my perspective. I hope that it has provided a little bit of comfort to you, or maybe a bit of understanding. If anybody has questions or comments, or you know, black pills you're facing, or maybe you have other inspiring topics that help you white pill yourself, I would love to hear them. Leave them in the comments. Send me an email, thirdeyenavigation@protonmail.com. I'll put that down in the description as well. You can find me on Telegram, A. Marie Speaks over there, or on Spotify, same name, or whether you're on BitChute or YouTube, you know. I have quite a few videos there in the meantime. So thank you so much for listening to this deep dive, insiders kind of look at the black pill events and how to pull ourselves out of them. I hope you have a beautiful day or evening wherever in the world you are. I'll talk to you soon.